In my book, How to Be Miserable, I talk about a question I often ask at the end of an assessment, especially with clients who are depressed or really dissatisfied with their lives. So I'm going to mention it here. People come in to see mental health professionals hoping to understand more about the problem. And if I talk and talk and talk to them about their experience and their symptoms still sound pretty unusual, I might be tempted to say, this sounds like obsessive compulsive disorder or panic disorder or something else. But a lot of what I see is depression, and I've noticed something. The more I know about the person's life, the less mysterious their symptoms sound. Not so much bipolar disorder, mind you. That seems to be a bit of a different thing with a clearer biological component. I might talk about bipolar disorder in another post at some point. Don't take this post as an essay on bipolar disorder. Anyway, so someone comes to see me and they're drowsy all day. They have no energy, they can't concentrate, they have no real interest in life, they can't make decisions, they feel self-conscious and insignificant, and they feel blah or down most of the day, nearly every day. Now, in another post, I might go over the formal criteria for diagnosing MDD, major depressive disorder. I won't do that now. Suffice to say that this person is getting pretty close to that line. But I also ask what they're doing all day. And we can imagine a person who says that they stay home, they watch screens pretty much full time, their sleep cycle is pretty random, they eat junk food all the time, they get no exercise, they never go out or see other people. And the more I know, again, the less mysterious their symptoms get. If you live a life that way, you will most likely feel low, disinterested, indecisive, you'll have no energy, and you won't be able to concentrate. That's what that kind of life feels like. Imagine you were to take a hammer and hit your thumb with it really hard, and it hurts. Well, you could take that pain as a sign that there's something wrong with your thumb. Maybe you have thumb pain disorder. But really, your thumb is just responding normally. You hit your thumb like that, it's gonna hurt. Now, there's an obvious mystery when it comes to depression, though. Why is this person living in this way? And there's a subject that we can consider in therapy. But part of the answer is likely to be simple inertia. Once you start living that way, it becomes automatic and instinctive, and it gets harder and harder to change. Treatment can involve looking at the historical events and ways of thinking that led to that way of life, and that can be helpful. But a lot of it will involve shifting certain habits to a different way of living. So back to my question. At the end of an assessment, I'll often say, now, I'd like to ask you a very odd kind of question. Imagine that we were to kidnap the next 10 people who pass in front of this building, and we give them your life. Everything that you do, they'll do. So we give them your diet, your amount of screen time, your amount of exercise, your social life, your sleep schedule, your family, your home, your job, your boss, and everything else. 24 hours a day. We'll make them live exactly the way that you live, and we'll leave them there for a month. At the end of a month, we'll come back and say, how you doing? What do you think? How would they be doing? And most people with low mood say, I think they'd be depressed. Now, sometimes they say, well, I have a lot of money and I live in a pretty nice place. I think a lot of people from the developing world would be thrilled. I should be, but I'm not. And I remind the person that these kidnap victims, they don't just live in their house, they also spend their days the way my client does. And sometimes I add, we'll have them think about their life exactly the way you do. And then just about everybody says, oh, well then they'd be depressed. Notice what this does. That makes the depressed person kind of normal. They're responding normally, just like others would do in the same situation. There may be no real disorder. Hit other people's thumb with a hammer, it'll hurt too. Instead of diagnosing the person as being disordered or having some sort of mental illness, I can diagnose them as responding normally, which they usually are. And notice what I didn't do. I didn't give our kidnappees the person's history. The parents' ugly divorce, the car accident at 20, the sexual abuse at 12, the firing from the job last year. I just give them the person's current life, the way they're living right now. And that's usually enough. In fact, imagine that we had a choice. We can have you live exactly the same way as you do right now, but we can take away those awful elements of your personal history. Or we can keep your history exactly the way that it was, but change your life now. I would pick, let's work on changing your life now every time, because that would help more, which is good, because no matter how good a therapist I am, I cannot go back in time and change anyone's history. All we ever do is change the present. Now, this can sound discouraging because the person can look at their life and think, oh my God, in order for those other people to be happy with their life, so much would have to change. I'll never manage it. But usually the changes aren't so big. We don't have to get the person to a perfect diet, a perfect sleep cycle, perfect social life, perfect everything in order for them to feel better. We just have to start. And the mood usually begins coming up. If you're in a lousy place in your life, but you're rising out of it, you feel better. Nobody's life will ever be perfect anyway. Luckily, we don't need to be perfect in order not to be depressed. We just need a little movement. So why bother telling you this? Well, because one of the most useful skills in life is the ability to see yourself from a distance. Not self-consciously, like you do when you're feeling some social anxiety, but objectively. It's the ability to step back and look at yourself the way that a compassionate person might do, or like your therapist might do. Half of therapy is about helping the person become their own therapist. And this is one of the best ways. It's not magic, but it can help. So if you're feeling discouraged about your life, one strategy you can try is to imagine that you gave a bunch of strangers your life. How would they do? Would they feel stressed or dissatisfied or depressed as well? And if so, then maybe there's nothing so unusual about you. You may not need to change yourself. It might be better to focus on changing some elements of your lifestyle instead. Keep in mind, these videos are not psychotherapy, and I don't know you. I can't evaluate your situation, your mood, and what you're experiencing. But if you suspect that depression might be a factor in your own life, please see your physician. See a qualified healthcare professional. Thanks for watching. You can get How to Be Miserable from your local bookseller or from Amazon. The link's below.